Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Rising. Happy Monday. We've got a great show planned for you all this morning. Kim, who do we have?
Yes, we do. We have a great show. First of all, Ryan is out. He's on vacation with his family, but he'll be back. But Team Rising is here to weigh in on Trump's momentum leading up to 2024. And The Hill's Rafael Bernal discusses the hurdle the White House is facing on U.S. policy towards Haiti. But first, we wanted to take a look at Biden's approval rating that just dropped to a new low. According to Quinnipiac, just 38% of Americans approve of Biden's job performance. That is down from 42% 3 weeks ago. 53% gave Biden a thumbs down.
On immigration, only 25% approve of Biden's handling and 39% approve of his handling of the economy. His best score was actually on handling the COVID pandemic. That's at 48% approval compared to 50% disapproval.
And there was a clear split down party lines. Surprise, surprise, right? 94% of Republicans surveyed said they disapprove of Biden's performance, while 80% of Democrats said they approve. Now, the team over at 538 assessed why Biden's approval rating isn't bouncing back, pointing to Afghanistan and the Delta variant as major players in Biden's poor scoring amongst Americans. His approval failed to recover even after cable news focused less on Afghanistan, suggesting the decline was due to more than just the catastrophe in Kabul. And I think that's really interesting, Robbie, because a lot of us wondered, once the media sort of tampered down all of the discussion about Kabul, whether or not his ratings would go back up, but they've only gone down. Why do you think, especially for Republicans, why Biden hasn't seemed to recover?
Yeah, I think that's a good point. A lot of people I trust said, after Afghanistan's out of the news cycle again, because there's been a long history of just ignoring foreign policy, right? And then it happens, we pay attention to it, then it fades back into the background. I think the honeymoon period is over for Biden. I think the new president gets a certain kind of grace period where maybe I think everyone was a little bit relieved to not be focused so intensely on the news the way kind of Trump commands the news cycle. And we have to always be the volume turned up to 11. We always have to be paying attention. It's exhausting. It was a little less exhausting to just have Biden in charge of the news cycle. It's more boring in almost a healthy way. But, the pandemic has not gotten better at the speed we all hoped. The pullout of Afghanistan was a disaster, even though I support the policy. Immigration's a mess. So I think people are just waking up to the reality of things being pretty bad, right?
Yeah, I agree. I think that what's going on is, we have a supply chain problem. We have a job market that even though it looks like things have bounced back, there's a lot of stats out there that say, things are going really well, but a lot of businesses are still struggling to hire. We have obviously immigration is being, touted all the time on the news. So people are really worried about what's going on, especially with the Haitian crisis at the border. And, so I think all of this is adding up. But I also think with the pandemic in particular, a lot of people, kind of what you've been saying a lot lately, which is, hey, you said if we got vaccinated that we wouldn't have to wear masks. We wouldn't have to go back into lockdowns. We wouldn't have to, we would be able to have Christmas with our families. And when we have Fauci coming out saying, not sure, and we have universities shutting down and saying kids go back to remote, even though 98% of you are vaccinated and everybody's got to wear masks again. I think that is really wearing on a lot of people. So all of these things compounding are really not just foreign policy, which we kind of thought with Kabul, but all of these other issues. Inflation, risks of inflation. People are just really worried, I think.
The shaming will continue until morale improves. That seems to be the government's policy re-COVID. Another factor could be that independents are starting to turn on Biden. As CNN's Harry Enton notes, in 2020, Biden had a 13-point win with independent voters. In September and October, he's at negative 16 points with the group, which is horrible. Obviously, Biden was in some ways, I think, a figure underrated by the media or not understood by the media, because the mainstream media skews, in a kind of Elizabeth Warren sort of establishment progressive direction. And to them, Biden is this very conventional, almost so conventional. It's like the contrarian take is now to understand why he did really well with just kind of regular regular people who knew what his name is and have known him for a long time and kind of like the guy. He doesn't offend a lot of people. I can, the kind of moderate, older, religious Democrat, I think, really makes up the core of the Biden voter. And you can see how, some independents would fit into that as well. But I think at some point they just can't ignore the direction of the country, the things not going well with all the things we just talked about. And yeah, with the federal government is going to make you get vaccinated if you don't want to, they're going to force your employer to force you, all this other stuff, the intrusion into people's lives that people don't want. People want to, that was the premise of Biden. We got to forget about the government for a little while, that he's not governing in that way at all.
Yeah, that's right. That was sort of the benefit of Biden, was not having Trump constantly on Twitter and the kind of the mayhem that would ensue from that. I mean, I don't really agree with you that the media is more of an Elizabeth Warren type. I still think that they're very much against Elizabeth Warren and that sort of type of progressive. But I do agree that, when it comes to Biden, a lot of people they sort of expected, I think, for a return to normalcy with him. And we're not exactly seeing that. And so I think with independents, which really are going to sway that vote, especially come midterms, we're really going to see how Biden not being able to kind of get us back to normal pre-pandemic state as quickly as people wanted, how that is going to affect in the midterm. But those independents, and the fact that independents that are driving a lot of his approval and disapproval rating, I think is going to be really, really telling come midterms what's going to happen. It's going to be really interesting to see.
The White House only has a short stretch to pass two major bills. The two bills include major climate provisions that Biden wants to tout at a global climate summit at the end of the month and have something to show Virginia voters come the governor's race. Now, in December, the government runs out of money and reaches the debt ceiling deadline. Mitch McConnell said in a letter to Biden that Republicans won't help Democrats advance future debt limit increases. Again, surprise, surprise. Why would they? There's only two sides and only one can win. So, of course, no side is going to help the other. That's the way U.S. politics works now. This is something we've been talking about a lot on the show lately, that the window for the kind of signature Biden legislative agenda for that to get approved and for the kind of Biden coalition to have something to show for itself, that window is closing slowly, maybe less slowly, and you can only. We saw this with Obama, right? 10 plus years ago, that it was the first couple months. It was the first part of his administration, of his time in the White House, was the only time you could do anything. So do you think are they going to get any of this? Probably some of it's going to get passed, but they're not going to get the whole agenda through, right?
I think this is going to be a really telling time for Biden between now and the new year. As you mentioned, we've got the Global Climate Summit at the end of the month. We also have the Virginia governor's race. And those are things that, Biden wants to be able to show up with some wins. And if he can't get the reconciliation package or even the infrastructure package done by then he doesn't really have anything to hang his hat on. And that is going to be a real problem for possibly the Virginia governor's race and just for Biden being able to, tout some sort of success. But going back to Mitch McConnell and his sort of scathing letter to Biden saying, we're not going to help you again. That goes back to Chuck Schumer, who after 11 Republicans helped pass, kind of the stopgap for the debt ceiling, pass that until December, which, by the way, in December, Democrats are going to have to revisit the debt ceiling. On top of that, there's going to be a looming government shutdown if they can't get the budget passed. And so we're looking at crisis after crisis after crisis under Biden not being able to get things done. But Chuck Schumer goes to the floor and he decides to, after 11 Republicans say, OK, we're going to help you with this stopgap, ends up kind of eviscerating them. This, of course, led to a bit of backlash even from other Democrats who were like, what are you doing, man? These guys just helped us. And now you're going to them and you're saying to them, you're kind of making it sort of this partisan fight. And so now what Mitch McConnell is saying is come December, you guys are going to have to do this through budget reconciliation. We're not going to help you again with this. You're going to have to do a long-term solution to the debt ceiling, and you're going to have to do it through the very complicated process of budget resolution. And so, budget reconciliation. So, There's going to be some fights. We're seeing fights inside the Democratic Party when it comes to the reconciliation package. We're seeing the infrastructure bill being halted. I think rightfully so. I do think that if Democrats were to push that through without tying it to the reconciliation package, we'll never see the reconciliation package happen. And then we've got the debt ceiling, and we've got the budget, the government shutdown looming. I mean, this is all going to be a very chaotic time, I think, moving forward between not only inside the Democratic Party, but also between the two parties between now and the end of the year. It's going to be, look out for chaos, I think.
But I mean, they have to get the Democratic Party has to get its people in line if it wants to pass this stuff, right? That you can't act like, Sinema and Manchin are part of the coalition that constitutes your majority. So your slimmest, by the slimmest of possible margins majority. So you can't, I found it so obnoxious the other week when Bernie Sanders was like, well, two senators can't get in the way of the 48. Well, if the two senators are against you, that makes 52, and you're not in the majority. So you have to actually, I know it's frustrating, but you have to do what those people want in order to have enough votes in place. And it's not, I think Democrats really complain about the process a lot. They're like, the process is so biased in favor of Republicans, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Look, it is what it is. We can change. I would favor some procedural changes to it, but it's not going to happen. You barely have a majority, so you have to make it work. That's just what you have to do. They don't have 60. They don't have 2/3 of the country with them, right? You have half the country with you, so you have to be a little conciliatory in order to make this work.
Well, and this is why the midterms are going to be really important, because we're going to see how the American public views all of this. If they really want that reconciliation package, they're going to be voting in more Democrats in order to prevent this sort of, Manchin and Sinema. We'll see how the Senate races pan out, and that'll really be, I think, very telling. Do the American people, would they prefer to have this reconciliation package, or are they upset about other things going on inside of the Biden administration? Right. I think that the midterms are really going to tell with that. But a lot of this is just a lot of political posturing at this point. I think Biden was right all along when he said nothing will fundamentally change. I really doubt we're going to see this reconciliation package happening anytime soon. And I also doubt we're going to have, I doubt we're going to default on our debt, and I doubt we're going to have a government shutdown that's going to last too long. I mean, a lot of it is just just, like I said, political posturing. And in the end, I don't know where we're going to be left, but probably with nothing fundamentally changing. Yeah. Well, maybe people want to vote for, they would like to vote for Democrats in order to get those things passed, but they're worried that a vote for Democrats is a vote to wear masks for the rest of our lives. Right. So. Exactly. And that's where it's going to really play out, is like, do they want to have these things that are inside of this reconciliation package that really truly help families? Or are they saying, no, we just want our lives back to normal? We actually would like things to revert back to things fundamentally not changing. That'll be really interesting moving forward to see how that pans out. Well, next, we'll tell you what's on our radar. Stay tuned.